Okay, we're back again exploring different ways to use the ILEX practice tools. So I'm in the version of ILEX that is for my dendrology course at NC State. And you can see the differences that I have all these different weeks. So each week of the semester, I have the set of species that we're learning, and I can adjust that fairly quickly in the back end of the tool. Now, you'll sometimes notice that the thumbnails don't immediately load, and I would just tell you to refresh your screen. And hopefully they'll come through. If you click on them, they will eventually come through. But with the number of images that we have, we want to retain our ability to sort, but sometimes it takes a moment for images to load. So often I will tell my students to practice that particular week species. We usually learn between 16 and 17 species a week. And so I can just practice this whole group. So if this is my first week of dendrology, I might choose to practice the group. And this is a tool that my students used the most of all the tools that we had available in ILEX last year. And that's to do leaf identification by spelling. So this combines your ability to identify the plant with your ability to correctly spell the scientific name. So I'm going to go ahead and start my practice. And so I've chosen the group. Right. And so down here, I have to type in the name. It's not sensitive to capitalization, but it is sensitive. And actually, let me X out of this. Let me go into this tool again. So leaf ID and spelling. And if I scroll down, right, I can do the number of questions. And then I have spelling tolerance, which I don't like to use. I like to have that at 100% because we require students to know the name. So I don't really like using a typing tool where you're reinforcing spelling something wrong. So let's go ahead and start this again. And we have Orchis stellata, right? And it confirms your identification. This, I might want a bigger picture. So I'm going to focus in on this. Okay, you have to get the variety right, otherwise it'll tell you spelled it wrong. And I can combine weeks, so I could have chosen 2 weeks to quiz at the same time, or even all of the species up through the midterm exam. So far, I'm doing okay with my spelling. That's not always the case. I tend to forget the ends of words. Okay. Or the variety, that's another. This is now variety rubrum. I use the weekly 2022 taxonomy. So we're up to date. This one I'm going to click on to get a better view. I can see how fuzzy this rachis is. I'm feeling pretty good about it being Carya tomentosa. Okay, and then I have black cherries. I'm going to check my work. Oh, so this has been changed. So now it's Prunus serotina, var serotina. And so it shows 51%. So it's 51% spelled correctly, but it's marked wrong. And the important thing about this retry button is that this reinforces the correct spelling. So if you missed it, that's fine, but you get a chance to write it incorrectly, which solidifies the spelling in your brain. And so maybe I will remember this next time, right? So it confirms that this is correct. So this is a really popular tool that students use. And it'll show you the percent correct and then the spelling accuracy for the results. And if I restarted this quiz, I would get entirely different photos. There might be some overlap, but each species has 5 or 6 photos of leaves. So they often will be different, and they'll be in different order. You can get repeats as well. That's the And I just want to illustrate that I could get an entirely different set of photos here. Okay, so you get the idea that this is the tool that my students tend to use the most because it enables them to practice their identification and their spelling. They can keep doing this quiz multiple times and get different images and different species sets depending on what filters they use every time. Now, right, once I have 2 weeks worth, I might do a practice quiz combining those because our quizzes are cumulative as they are for most dendrology classes. Or maybe I want to add another sort on here. So maybe I have 3 weeks worth of species, but I only want to study the shrubs, right? So that brings my little list down to a small number and I can study them that way. So lots of different ways to filter and sort, and students like having the options to choose and practice different sets of species. It helps reinforce the spelling and the identification at the same time.